Okay, you know the drill, right? Your phone buzzes, it's some number you don't recognize, you just ignore it. We all do. We've gotten so good at not answering our own phones. But here's the thing, this isn't just an annoyance anymore, it's a huge security threat, and that's what we're going to talk about. Because the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, is actually fighting back. They're waging a full-on multi-front war to take back our phones, and in this explainer, we're going to break down their entire battle plan.
So, just how bad is this trust problem we all have? Well, get a load of this. A recent report found that a whopping 80% of unidentified calls just go unanswered. Think about that. 4 out of every 5 times a strange number calls, we just let it ring. We're already on guard. But the problem is, the scammers, they're getting way smarter. And this is where things get really personal, and honestly, kind of scary. The newest weapon in the scammers' arsenal is AI. We're talking about AI-powered voice cloning that can perfectly mimic someone you know, a family member, a celebrity, you name it, to create these scams that are just shockingly convincing. So what do you do when the one thing you trust, your own ears, can't be trusted anymore?
Well, that's where the FCC comes in. The chairwoman, Jessica Rosenworcel, put it pretty bluntly here. She says they see this as a direct threat, not just some nuisance. They're not just sitting back and watching this happen. They are actively building a strategy to take apart the entire robocall machine. So let's look at the first front in this war.
Okay, the FCC's first move is to go right to the source. The goal here is simple: stop the illegal calls before they're even made. And the big idea is, look, if you want to make calls on our networks, you have to prove who you are. No more hiding in the shadows.
And the main way they're going to do this is with something called Know Your Customer, or KYC. Now, this isn't some brand new concept, but the FCC wants to make it way more strict for all the phone companies. The thinking is pretty clear. The phone companies are the gatekeepers. If you make them verify a customer's real identity before giving them service, it suddenly becomes a whole lot harder for criminals to just pop up and start scamming people. And what's really smart is the way the FCC is explaining this. They're basically saying, hey, we've been doing this with banks for decades, right? Banks have to know who you are to stop things like money laundering. So the FCC's argument is, why aren't we doing the exact same thing with phone companies to stop scam calls? It's all about creating accountability. So what would this actually mean? Well, the FCC is getting specific. Phone companies would have to collect, and this is the important part, verify things like your full name, a real physical address, not just a PO box, and a government ID number. And for the really high-volume callers, the ones most likely to be robocallers, the rules get even tougher. They'd have to say what they're using the service for and even provide their IP address. So you see, this has a 1-2 punch. First, it's a huge deterrent. Anonymity is a scammer's best friend, and strong KYC rules just rip that away. And second, if a scam does happen, there's now a clear paper trail for law enforcement to follow. And that doesn't just help with robocalls, it helps with all the other serious crimes that use anonymous phones to operate.
All right, so let's move on to the second battlefront. Because it's not enough to just know who the scammers are. The FCC also wants to take away their favorite toys, the tools they use to trick us. This means going after the specific tech and tactics that make these scams work so well.
And they've already made a big move. Earlier in 2024, the FCC just straight up declared that using AI voices in robocalls is illegal. This was huge because it gave state attorneys general a brand new legal weapon. Now they can go after someone just for using a cloned voice. They don't have to wait for the fraud to happen first.
Now, another favorite tool of scammers is something called number cycling. This is how they stay one step ahead of all those call blocking apps on our phones. They basically treat phone numbers like burner phones. They use them for a bit, and as soon as it gets a bad reputation, they just toss it and grab a new one.
You can see how it works here. It's super simple, but really effective. Scammers get these big blocks of phone numbers, usually from resellers who don't ask a lot of questions. They blast out calls until the number starts getting flagged as spam likely, and then boom, they drop it and move on to the next one. It's a non-stop shell game that makes them incredibly hard to track.
So how do you stop that? You gotta go after the supply chain. The FCC is planning new rules to really put a spotlight on this murky world of number resellers. They want to make every single company that touches a phone number, from the big guys at the top to the smallest reseller, totally accountable for who they're giving these numbers to.
Okay, on to the third front in this war. A massive number of these illegal calls don't even start in the US. They come from call centers all over the world, way outside the easy reach of American law enforcement. So a huge piece of the FCC's plan is to basically secure the borders of our phone network.
And they've got a whole list of proposals to do it. We're talking about maybe capping how many calls can be outsourced, giving you the right to demand a US-based agent and even going after the money. They want the gateway providers, the companies that funnel foreign calls into the US, to put up a bond. That way, if illegal calls come through, that money can be used to pay for enforcement. And then there's the big one, a potential ban on using call centers in certain adversary nations.
So there are really two big goals here. First, obviously, is to cut down on the number of scam calls coming from other countries. But the second is a matter of national security. It's about making sure our sensitive personal and financial data isn't being handled in places that could pose a risk to us.
So you can see the FCC as this really comprehensive, multi-front plan. But, you know, this isn't a war you win with a single decisive battle. It's more like a constant game of cat and mouse. For every move the regulators make, you can bet the scammers are already working on a countermove.
And the pushback doesn't just come from the scammers themselves. The FCC has to work within a really complex legal system, and sometimes even their best-laid plans can get shot down by the courts.
And here's a perfect example of what that looks like. The FCC created this great rule called one-to-one consent. It was designed to stop those lead generation websites where you click one box and accidentally agree to get calls from like 100 different companies. But literally, the day before the rule was supposed to start, a federal court killed it. They said the FCC had overstepped its authority. Just like that, it was gone. It's a tough reminder that fighting this battle is never a straight line.
So let's wrap this all up. This table really gives you the bird's-eye view of the FCC's whole war plan. On the identity front, they're going after anonymity with stronger KYC rules. On the tools front, they're taking away deceptive tech like AI voices and cracking down on number cycling. And on the origin front, they're trying to lock down the network borders by going after foreign call centers. It really is an aggressive, all-in approach to a problem that, let's face it, drives every single one of us crazy.
Look, the FCC is clearly putting up a bigger fight than ever before. But with scammers constantly adopting new tech like AI and finding new loopholes, you have to wonder, can the good guys ever truly get ahead in this high-tech arms race? This multi-front war is the best shot we've seen yet, but whether it finally brings some peace and quiet to our phones, well, that's a story that's still being written.